DJ Khaled guy?
Hands thrown up and in.
Goodman needs to be fired all the time.
Josh Pastner.
You're going to beat people straight up.
You know the deal.
Drink responsibly tonight. I'll be drinking with you.
Jarrell McNeil.
From the bluest of the blue bloods to the smallest of the mid-majors.
This is Field of 68 After Dark.
Hello and welcome in to one of the final shows of 2023 here on Field of 68 After Dark. Hope everybody had a very Merry Christmas. Hope everybody has a beautiful and safe end of the year. We got a lot to talk about in college basketball, including some breaking news involving a top 25 college basketball team and its star player and the ramifications potentially of everything involving that news. We'll get into that today on the show. We'll get into some superlatives, the biggest surprises, the biggest disappointments. We're going to handicap the AAC race, which actually sneakily, looks like one of the, tightest races in all of college basketball. So we'll do that today on the show. I'm John Martin, hold it down with my guys, Randolph Childress, Wake Forest basketball legend, college basketball coaching veteran, and college basketball analyst here on the Field of 68, as well as my man, Matt McCall, also college basketball coaching veteran and college basketball analyst here, joining me tonight. We're going to get into all those things a little bit later. USC, Oregon, going to go final. We'll get into that. But first, fellas, appreciate you being here. Got to start with the news of the day. And that, of course, involves Illinois basketball star Terrence Shannon Jr., who has been suspended from all team activities after he was charged with rape, the school announced on Thursday. So the facts of the case as we know them: a warrant for his arrest was issued by the Douglas County, Kansas District Attorney's Office earlier this week over an alleged sexual assault that happened in September. Illinois was playing Kansas in Lawrence that weekend, and that explains why Terrence Shannon was in Lawrence. According to those records, he did turn himself in, was arrested in Lawrence earlier today on a charge of rape, sexual intercourse without and use of force. We do have statements from both Terrence Shannon's attorney as well as the school. Let's start with the school. DIA and campus officials have been aware of a Lawrence police investigation into Shannon since late September, but until Wednesday had yet to receive actionable information. Shannon's arrest triggers the student-athlete misconduct policy. He's been immediately suspended from all team activities. Now, for Terrence Shannon Jr.'s part, his attorney released the following statement. Since September, when these allegations surfaced, Terrence has cooperated with law enforcement, declaring his innocence from the beginning. Several months later, my office learned that formal charges were filed against him in Lawrence. In less than 24 hours, my client responded and voluntarily surrendered to authorities for processing and release. Terrence of these charges, and he intends to take his case to trial. So that is where all of this stands. Obviously, still awaiting really any facts beyond the ones that I just laid out. So, Matt, as someone that's been, in the college coaching industry, is there anything Brad Underwood can do, or is this a situation that is just totally out of his hands?
I think that it's totally out of his hands. I think anytime there's a legal matter, and Coach Underwood's been doing this too long, and has had too much success just to put a player out there on the floor just to win games, especially in a situation like this. The school's involved, the president's involved, the athletic administration's involved, from the AD to your sport oversight. I mean, everybody's involved in this situation. To just throw Terrence Shannon out there on the floor just to win games with a matter this serious. And, I'll let RC talk on this too, but, for us even to comment on it when we really don't have all the information from either side, no one's really saying a ton, is difficult for us to do in such a sensitive, matter. And there's two sides to this. There's two sides to the story. But for Coach Underwood, for him doing this, he's been doing it way too long and had too much success. This is not just his decision to put Terrence Shannon out there on the floor just to win basketball games. Not when you're dealing with something as serious as this.
Yeah, only thing I'd like to add to that is just, I pray it should go out to everybody involved in this. This is just a tragic situation that happened, and for all parties involved, for, Terrence Shannon and this, and again, it's not about guilt or innocence here. We're not judge or jury. No one is. We don't know anything. No one knows the facts of this case, but it's just an unfortunate thing. And prayers is to both sides that they can, that this situation just resolves itself in some kind of way, and whoever gets help that they need to move past it is the only thing I can comment about it right now. Until we get more information, it's just not much to say. There hasn't been anything said, in a formal sense. So it's difficult for us to even comment on that. So just continue prayers to those all parties involved.
Agree completely. Just as it relates to, guilt or innocence, nobody on this panel is qualified to weigh in on that one way or the other. There is, and again, I sort of feel a little, guilty even going here, but RC, there is a basketball aspect to this, and it's secondary. So, again, I'm going to preface that by saying that, but this is a young man who is top 10 in the country in scoring, 21 points a game. And we know for a team that's ranked at number 11 in the country and has big dreams and big aspirations, this is a major loss. And if, we're talking about going to trial here, it's hard to expect him to be back. These things take a lot of time. The wheels of bureaucracy turn very slowly. So for Illinois' part in this, how can they, if at all, rebuild without Terrence Shannon Jr. on this team?
You can't. It's you just can't. I think this is such a shock to everyone. For coaches, for teammates, there's no preparation for anything like this. No one's, there's no handbook, there's no playbook for anything like this. You just, even Illinois is support. You just want to find the facts. We're all in higher education. It's about kids, and even when they do things to potentially harm each other, it's always about kids. And so we don't know what's happened here, and I think Illinois, that's the last thing on their mind. They're trying to. I think it's probably best for Terrence Shannon with these allegations to be apart from the team, to focus on himself, and as frustrating as that may be for him, as he claims his innocence or whatever. But from a basketball perspective, they're gonna be faced with this question all year long. Every time there's any news with this, it's going to be in everyone's has to answer on it, and they can't. I think the same thing we're talking about. What is his teammates going to say? What is anybody expecting Brad Underwood to say? There's just not much anyone's going to be able to say other than a prepared statement, because they wasn't there. They don't know anything, either. So just a challenge, difficult thing again. And from a, this is basketball is a secondary thing here, and I don't know if this team can, will respond, and I don't know how they would if they tried.
Yeah, Matt. Is it just...
Go ahead, John.
Go ahead. You're fine. I was just going to sort of
segue. I'm
please.
with RC. It just becomes, it's going to become the topic that everyone's having to deal with the media, from Brad Underwood to the players to everyone, and no one was expecting this, and how do they respond from it is, again, I don't know that any of us, can comment on, hey, this is what this team needs. They lose one of the best players in the country. So that's clearly going to hurt their team in terms of trying to win a Big Ten championship in a league that is deep, it's balanced. We see what Purdue's doing, but the basketball piece of this whole deal is completely secondary. And like RC said, there's a lot of different pieces to this. There's a lot of different parts to this. There's two sides to this whole deal. And now you bring in all the other players with Illinois that are going to have to deal with this, Brad Underwood, and answer questions with regards to this. And it has nothing to do with basketball, but it's going to be a distraction for their team. So, the shock factor of this, especially with, Big Ten play, and I know they've played Big Ten games already, but the meat of the schedule coming, starting in January is going to be difficult for them. And it's not one of these things where, if you're Brad Underwood, you can go into the locker room and say, hey, let's rally around this. That's not this. This is not someone that got hurt. This is not,
right.
a situation like that. So, This is not a rallying cry that you can do that around a situation that, is involving a matter as serious as this matter is.
Yeah. And look, we could go down a lot of different paths here, and I could ask a lot of different follow-up questions, but it would just be purely speculative in nature, and really not productive. I mean, quite frankly, based on the information that's available to us right now. I mean, that's all going to come out. I mean, if Terrence Shannon Jr. and his attorney are saying that they intend to take this thing to trial and it goes that far, we'll have more information, and that will all play out in a courtroom. But until now, we have what we have. Illinois will play its first game post Terrence Shannon Jr. Tomorrow. They'll be hosting Fairleigh Dickinson, so it will be interesting to see. Obviously, that competition is a little hard to gauge in terms of what will this look like in Big Ten play. But at any rate, it will be their first game without Terrence Shannon Jr. tomorrow, so there will be some intrigue there. Moving on, we did have a fairly interesting game in college basketball tonight. Again, a pretty light night as finals are getting done and everybody's coming back to campus. The Oregon Ducks handle the USC Trojans 82-74. This is, of course, the USC team that came into this season, fellas, and they may come up again in this show with a potential number one pick in the draft. Boogie Ellis coming back for his fifth season. Bronny James, and they're sitting here at 500, and it is not looking good. RC, what do you make of this USC team and why it has been able to really get off the ground this year?
It's been interesting. It just doesn't seem like this team, like all the parts that fit right, together to start the season. And I'll start by saying this though. I'm happy to see Bronny James out there for what he's been through this summer. Just seeing him on the floor. I think the entire year for these guys will be woulda, coulda, shoulda with him had he been healthy the entire year and been able to play, because I enjoy watching him. It's fun the way he plays. He's a ball mover. He plays the right way. He's just a smaller version of his dad. I mean, he's not his dad. His dad is arguably the greatest player of all time. But the way they play the game, in a cerebral manner, he defends. He's just really good at a lot of things on the floor, and I think he'd be a fit on anyone's team. And I think if he was healthy, this team could use a hell of a lot more of Bronny James and what he brings. He, in the minute restrictions that he's out there, he does things. He just does a little bit of everything. He knocks down shots. He defends. He competes his tail off. So one thing for sure is USC could use a hell of a lot more of that. This team is way too talented to be 500 right now this early in the year. So I just expect them to figure some things out. Their guard play is too strong. It's too much NBA talent in that backcourt and productive backcourt, but they got to figure it out. But right now, the pieces aren't fitting and they're not working. It's not working well together.
Matt, do you think that, again, if you start with, okay, I've got an equation here, and the first part of that equation is I've got a boatload of talent. Is it one of those things when you look at this group that it may be different in March, like it may catch fire? Like, is that sort of how you look at USC?
I do, and I don't know what Bronny James's minute restriction is, but I'm with RC. When he's out there on the floor, the ball is moving, it's hopping around. He's trying to play the right way. When you look at him on the bench, he's cheering his teammates. He's celebrating their success. He's not sitting over there upset and angry that he's not playing. I'm with you. I do think this team can catch fire. I mean, you look at the numbers in the game tonight. I mean, they had 20 assists. The biggest discrepancy in the game was Oregon shot 32 free throws to USC's 15. That's a 17 free throw differential. That was the difference in the game. I mean, USC out-rebounded Oregon in the game as well. So, they're so talented. Their backcourt is so good. What kind of minute restriction is Bronny on? And trying to work him back into the fold is a challenge for the coaching staff on how do we play this? What are the moving parts? How do we get him and mesh this group together? You got to remember, he missed so much practice time too, right? Mm-hmm. So that's another big key to this whole thing, that this team could look completely different had he been practicing.
Yeah, we may revisit USC a little bit later. Also, the AAC, 2 top 25 teams. Is there a clear edge in that league? Get into it a little bit later. Stick around. You're watching Field of 68 After Dark. Back after this.
As you guys know by now, we've partnered with BetMGM Sportsbook for this college basketball season. We're going to be using BetMGM lines to make all of our picks and predictions throughout the college basketball season. And we are going to have special offers for you, the listeners and the viewers on the Field of 68 each and every week during the season. If you haven't signed up with BetMGM yet, use the bonus code FIELD1500 and you will get up to a $1,500 first bet offer on your first wager on BetMGM Sportsbook. Here's what you got to do. Download the BetMGM app. Sign up using the bonus code FIELD1500. Deposit at least $10 and place your first wager on any game. You will receive up to $1,500 in bonus bets if that bet loses. Just make sure you use the bonus code FIELD1500 when you sign up. And remember, BetMGM is now available under one wallet in select states. As a New Jersey resident, this is super convenient for me when I have to go cover games in New York or Philly. When crossing state borders, just log into your existing account instead of having to create new accounts in each state that you go to. And most importantly, I got to let you know, we do have some fun stuff coming up for this college basketball season. Bet insurance tokens, college hoops odds boosts, my personal favorite, parlay odds boosts. So download the BetMGM app today.
And welcome back to the Field of 68 After Dark. We got a lot to get to here on the show. We're going to do some superlatives, most disappointing, most surprising, everything in between. Going to talk about two maybe contenders for the whole thing coming out of the AAC and FAU and Memphis. Because I believe that's a legitimate statement. That's not me just putting on for the small guys. I think that's absolutely a fact. So we'll get into that.
I can't wait for that talk, John. I can't wait for it, baby. I'm excited about that.
You know what?
I'm going to have to referee that one. I'm going to have to referee that one.
Now, have you been on an FAU game yet, RC? I mean, that's you may be a little, you may have a little Memphis agenda still until you get on an FAU call. So
no, anybody knows me know I'm a big FAU fan.
Yeah, so we'll get into that, and I think I'm going to surprise you, Matt. I really do, but we'll save that for a little bit later. RC, I want to go back to Bronny because you talked about his minute restriction, and look, this is a young man that is projected to go, anywhere from 5 to 10 in the NBA draft. And obviously he had such a scare with his health that it's hard to evaluate him, but you have to, right? I mean, that's the game. So what is the fair way to evaluate him as he's trying to just get his legs under him, and put together some kind of a season after all of that?
You just judge him by what you see. And when you watch him play, he's a guy that leaves you wanting more, right? He just plays the right way. He defends, he competes his tail off, and he leaves you intrigued. If he plays 10 minutes, if he plays 15 minutes, he's impactful when he's on the floor, and that's what you want. So if for all the people who talk about great players, I don't know how many great players in college right now that's going to be great to translate to the next level. All these guys are going to have a learning curve, but he's a guy that'll buy into a role that may not be projected to be a star at the next level, but he's going to come in as a ball handler, shot maker, and defender. And everybody wants guys like that. And the way he plays, like I said, I'm excited for his future. I just want to see him play a full season and get healthy. I think he'll get better, and as he gets better, I think they'll get better. The only concern that I have for USC in general is you can't play your way in the tournament per se in November and December, but you can play your way out of it. And I don't know if they're going to have enough games in the Pac-12 to get the quality wins to get themselves back in this thing. That's my only concern. So they're going to have to catch fire and win against the Arizonas and the Colorados, and they're going to have to win some of those games and to get back into this race.
Yeah, Matt, in terms of, and he may or may not have a decision. I mean, is it as easy as, you just go after a year, regardless of whether or not it takes off for you? I mean, if you're a guy that's plus the opportunity to play with dad, and that obviously maybe it's ticking. I don't know. LeBron's an absolute alien, but is it as easy as if you're projected top 10 pick, you have to go regardless of what you did in college?
First of all, LeBron's not going anywhere. Okay, have you seen the guy lately? He's not going. He's not going anywhere. I want to see Bronny come back, and this is not a financial decision for Bronny. I think his health and developing. I mean, you look at the jump that a lot of guys make from their freshman to their sophomore year in college. It becomes big, and if he could have a full summer to work out and grow and develop, and then he has the fall, and then he plays a full season. I mean, he could look completely different, and this USC team could look completely different next year with him being healthy. And I don't know that he's a top 10 pick right now. I don't know if he's even a first rounder just because of everything that he's went through. I know there's a lot of expectations that are placed on him. I get that. I want to see him come back, and I want to see what he looks like as a sophomore with the full summer and a full fall. And like RC has alluded to, he's fun to watch. He leaves you wanting more because he plays the game the right way. And I think one of the most impressive things about, with all the expectations that are placed on him, and nobody dealt with expectations better than his dad. On the cover of Sports Illustrated at 16, he was the most hyped high school player of all time, LeBron James. And all he's done is become the NBA's all-time leading scorer, right? So nobody's been better at dealing with expectations in the history of sports than LeBron James. And I really believe that. So there's all these expectations on Bronny. Let him come back. Let's see what he looks like next year, because I think he'd look completely different, and he plays the game the right way. He roots on his teammates. He's not over there sulking because he's not in the game. He's literally celebrating their success. And, man, he could be a completely different player next year with a full summer and a full fall.
RC, you agree with that? Do you think he should come back?
I think it depends on where he's drafted. If he's top 10, no. I don't think you can't come back. If he's going to be top 15, he can't come back. Now, I do think if he was to come back, if he was the late first round pick and he decided to come back and he could improve his draft status, then that's a different conversation. If someone was to say he was going to go in the late 20s, but if he's top 10 or top 15, then I just don't know how he can come back to school. I think at that point, that development has to take place at the NBA level, whether it's G League or whatever it is. You just have to take your chances with that. So everything's predicated to me on truly where he's projected to go.
Yeah. Look, we'll see on this USC team. They've played some really good opponents at Auburn. I mean, that could be one of those. I know they got punched in the mouth. They got smacked around a little bit, but Auburn's a good team, and you're there. And maybe that's the kind of game that can help you in January and February, especially if Bronny develops. So we shall see. In terms of the Pac-12 race, while we are on the subject here, Arizona clearly the favorite. Is there another team, and there are a couple in there. There are a couple in there that feel kind of sneaky, but is there another team in the Pac-12, Matt, that you think can really push them and maybe make a run at the title?
I mean, I really believe Colorado is the only one as of right now that can do it. I mean, when you look at what they've done, they lose to Colorado State. That's not a bad loss. I mean, we'll get into them later in the show. I mean, Colorado State's a really, really good basketball team. They lose to Florida State, who's having a down year, but that game was also in Daytona Beach, Florida. They blow out Miami, who's a team that's kind of still trying to figure it out. But you look at their offense, almost 6 guys averaging double figures. KJ Simpson, 20 per game, shooting 50% from 3. They're the 14th ranked offense in the country. I think they're the team just because of how good they are on the offensive end of the floor that can push Arizona. I don't know if there's another team based on the numbers and based on where we stand right now that we can put in that category. I think Colorado is the one team right now that can.
But does it kind of feel like we're like –
I think that game – go ahead, John.
I was just going to say, RC, does it kind of feel like we're like forcing that answer in that Arizona is just so complete that they may run away with it?
I feel like Arizona is top 2 team in the country, and I really think they're that good, and I think they're Final Four good, and I don't know many people that would argue against that. Now, when you get into conference play, it's it's challenging. It's always difficult. But Colorado was, I think, the one team I think could give them some difficulty in. And I think Washington can give them some run. I think Washington can give it a good run at it. They've beaten Gonzaga. They've shown, that they can win big games here this year. So can they sustain it? I don't think anybody as talented as Arizona. I mean, there's only one team that I think is better than them right now, and that's Purdue. And if they play next time they play on a neutral site, which they did, but it felt like it was Purdue. But if they meet again, I just feel like Arizona could beat Purdue. So I think they're that good, and it's not that I don't think Colorado can beat them this year, or Washington can win a game. I don't think Arizona's gonna go undefeated in the Pac-12, but I do think they're head and shoulders above everyone else, and I think they'll lose maybe two games or so all year, 2 to 3 tops in the Pac-12. I just think they're that good. So it's a credit to Arizona more than it is everyone else, because this Oregon team we saw tonight, if they get healthy, they can make things get interesting as well. So beyond that, UCLA. This isn't a good year for them. They're down. We know that. USC is the same. So I think those 4 teams will be the teams that we see at the top of the Pac-12 when it all said and done.
I want to stay on Arizona here for just a second, because I'm pretty sure we were all on that preseason top 25 show, and we had that discussion about Caleb Love specifically. And I know his splits aren't much different from a season ago, but when you watched Arizona, when you watch him play, there was this sort of perception about this young man that he was corrosive. Whoever that was coming from, that wherever he went, it was just going to be all about Caleb Love, and you can't win with Caleb Love, and it's all about him. And looks to me like, he hit some huge shots against FAU, Matt. I know they didn't get the ult, but he was absolutely massive, and he's been massive for this Arizona team. So what does it say, about Caleb and maybe about the situation in Arizona, that he's been able to fit in and be a team guy, and again, help this team to be one of the potentially 2 best in the country?
Yeah, they missed 2 layups down the stretch of the game against FAU. They had the game, right? And he missed one of them. I had him as the other night on the field of 68 as my top transfer in the country, strictly because of the narrative that was put out there about him last year. And almost kind of he was the reason that Carolina is not having the success that Carolina had previous season in playing for the national championship. To be able to go out to Arizona and do what he's doing, and Arizona being one of the best teams in the country, I think is extremely impressive. And that's a credit to Caleb Love. That's a credit to him, because the narrative out there, like you alluded to, it was a negative one. There was nobody talking about him in this positive light, like, hey man, this is a great get for Arizona. I was like, oh no, they shouldn't take him. He's the reason Carolina was bad this year and didn't make a run back to the Final Four. No, man, that's a credit to him. And that's why I think he still is one of the best transfers in the country. And that they're having the success that it's almost like he's liberated too. He can go out there and be himself and play the way that he wants to, and maybe with less expectations than he did last season. And I think expectations are one of the hardest things to deal with in sports. And he just looks like a different player. And I don't think there's anyone that's challenging those guys in the Pac-12. Colorado, maybe the one team that can do it, but credit him, and credit for him going out there and connecting that team. And you can see there's no issues in their locker room like maybe there were last year at Carolina. And that's why, it probably wasn't his fault.
Yeah. RC got about a minute here. How freeing is it just as a player, going to a situation like that where there's a winning expectation and, you can still do you?
Let's be honest. This split worked out for both teams, right?
Yep.
He's an explosive guy. He scares the hell out of you, because he gets it going. You got your hands full. Like, let's be clear. And he's fit in nicely at Arizona. Like we said, we've spoken about them enough. I think they'll be there in the end. And Carolina, who we're not talking about much tonight, I think they're playing as well as anyone right now, and they're not complaining about where they are. So the transition for both was really good. Just really happy for this kid, because the narrative was really unfair to him, and he's landed in a great spot, and he's playing on a great team, and they'll have something to say about it, and he gets a chance to win a natty.
We may have 2 contenders outside the Power 5 at FAU in Memphis, and we're going to handicap that AAC race when we get back. Stick around. You're watching Field of 68 After Dark.
As you guys know by now, we've partnered with BetMGM Sportsbook for this college basketball season. We're going to be using BetMGM lines to make all of our picks and predictions throughout the college basketball season. And we are going to have special offers for you, the listeners and the viewers on the Field of 68 each and every week during the season. If you haven't signed up with BetMGM yet, use the bonus code FIELD1500 and you will get up to a $1,500 first bet offer on your first wager on BetMGM Sportsbook. Here's what you got to do. Download the BetMGM app. Sign up using the bonus code FIELD1500. Deposit at least $10 and place your first wager on any game. You will receive up to $1,500 in bonus bets if that bet loses. Just make sure you use the bonus code FIELD1500 when you sign up. And remember, BetMGM is now available under one wallet in select states. As a New Jersey resident, this is super convenient for me when I have to go cover games in New York or Philly. When crossing state borders, just log into your existing account instead of having to create new accounts in each state that you go to. And most importantly, I got to let you know, we do have some fun stuff coming up for this college basketball season. Bet insurance tokens, college hoops odds boosts, my personal favorite, parlay odds boosts. So download the BetMGM app today.
All right, we're back. Welcome back to Field of 68 After Dark, one of the last shows of 2023, the year, of course, and we'll turn our attention to January 2024, getting into conference play. Man, it's about to get really real in college basketball. There's no doubt about it. Any of you guys got big plans for New Year's Eve, or are we out of that phase?
Dude, I'm out of that phase, man. I want to be in bed. I don't even watch the ball drop anymore. Right, my family in Long Island, they're in Long Island, New York. Like I'm going to be chilling. If I don't have the Field of 68, I can promise you one thing: I will not be up when that ball drops. I will be in my bed, sleeping, sound asleep. I'll wake up the next day, New Year's Day. It's a Southern tradition. I'll have my black eyed peas and collard greens because that's good luck. Grandma McCall used to always do that, so I'll do that on New Year's Day. But when that ball drops, John Martin, I will not be awake. I can promise you that.
RC, you're an empty nester, though, man. I know you're going to be doing something, right?
Yeah. I tell you what, I might stay awake to see the ball drop, but at 12:01, I'm in the bed. So again,
we're so
gonna celebrate it. It's gonna be literally like, hey, congratulations! I'm gonna give her a kiss and then I'm going to bed. There you go.
Well, perhaps pretty much anything is more exciting than our New Year's Eve plans, clearly. But the race in the AAC most definitely is. You've got two teams in Florida Atlantic, number 7 in the AP Top 25, and Memphis, number 19 in the AP 25, that are on a collision course here in the AAC. Funny enough, they're not going to even see each other until February. So they're gonna get real fat and happy in the AAC, stacking up some wins before they do. But Matt, obviously, we'll start with you. When you sort of look at these two teams, FAU kind of comes in replacing Houston as that top spot. You know, how close are these two teams right now, in your opinion?
John, you know the deal. Memphis is really good. Okay, I can't just sit here and get on my FAU soapbox. I mean, Memphis is really, really good. I mean, their only two losses are to Ole Miss and Villanova. You look at how Penny's scheduled. He's got wins over Arkansas, Michigan, at Missouri, at VCU, at Texas A&M, Clemson, Virginia, and Penny stacked his schedule, and those guys are really, really good. Okay, Jones has been outstanding, getting 20 a game. Quinterly has been unbelievable, almost 5 assists per game. And you look at these two teams, and I would put them against anybody in the country. And we know what FAU can do. You know, I think the thing with FAU is we haven't seen them at full strength yet. You know, you got Elijah Martin coming off an injury. He missed basically 2 months leading up to the season. And then Nick Boyd goes down. He misses 5 games, and he only played, I think, 12 minutes versus Arizona. But the most impressive thing is, and we saw this at the Field of 68 tip-off down there at FAU, was, they beat Liberty. Johnell Davis doesn't record a field goal, and he's out there celebrating his team's success. Nick Boyd plays 12 minutes versus Arizona. He's the first guy off the bench to run over and hug Johnell Davis after that ridiculous performance that he's had. So that, to me, and I sound like a broken record on this show, that's culture. And that's what separates FAU in terms of Memphis a little bit in this situation. Why I would give them the slight edge is just because I've seen them more, but I also witnessed those players celebrating each other's success. But make no mistake about it, Memphis is for real. Penny Hardaway, in his 6 seasons as a head coach, has grown. He's developed. I was pulling up his numbers as an NBA player because I was a huge Magic fan. And when Shaq left the Magic, I was devastated because that was the closest NBA team to my house. And, like his NBA career, in terms of him being a head coach, of course he's taken things away from the NBA, but you also have to learn who you are. You have to learn who your culture is. You have to learn how you're going to manage your staff and who do you want around you and things like that. And he's learned that. And that team is for real. I mean, that is a Final Four caliber team in this AAC. It's going to be fun to watch. I mean, it really is. John, I don't know if you're going to – is that game at home for FAU in February? Is it a weekday game? Do you know?
I think it's – I always get this confused. I think it is there, though. I think it is there, the first one.
Okay.
But
if it's a weekday game, because if it's a weekend game, I'll either be in studio or have a game for NBC. But if it's a weekday game, we may get you to come down here, and me and you are going to go watch that game together. We're going to sit right next to each other. I may be coming up there.
Yeah.
Hey,
the first one's here.
I'll add this. I think the difference who wins the league is I think they both win at home. I think they're that close. I mean, that's a coin flip either way. I think they split at home, and who avoids a slip up in conference play at UAB, at Tulane, or somewhere? Who slips up? I think that decides who wins the AAC. I think it's that close. I mean, John, I called the Memphis UVA game and blown away. And Matt, you mentioned that FAU hasn't been fully healthy. Well, hell, Memphis is getting Tomlin. They just added Tomlin like 2 weeks ago, right? So you're talking about another really good player being added to that lineup, which has size, which has length, it has depth.
Yep.
That team is really, really, really good. And if those they're teams that I can't even say they're sneaky picks to get, to maybe reach Phoenix, because if you've watched them play, you're not surprised. Obviously, FAU went there a year ago, and you know how I feel about Dusty May. I've said they're the most connected, fun group of guys. Watch the most unselfish group of kids, like watching college basketball, and they're fun to watch. And I've said that when they play that way, they don't care who gets the shot; they just want to get the right shot, and that is something that's incredibly hard to teach. With Vlad Golden in his side, I don't think he ever gets enough credit for what he does for that team. And the coach you mentioned before, just a credit to them, what they've done. But I think this is the best Memphis team that Penny has had. And their length, their athleticism, they got a guy, they got a closer. It's just, to me, being honest, I think it's going to boil down to they're going to win at home, and then who can avoid a slip up on the road? Because the only massive difference in that, I think, is just, is Memphis can struggle from behind the 3-point line, where they go on the road and someone zone them or something like that for 40 minutes and they just don't make shots. Can they avoid that slip up? If they can avoid that, this thing will be it's a toss up.
It's a coin flip. I totally agree with RC on that. I think it's a complete coin flip. I think the thing with FAU too is, as you look at Vlad Golden, who's been one of the best front court players in the country up to this point in the season, Elijah Martin and Johnell Davis, you got 3 all-league caliber players. But then you have Greenlee, Nick Boyd, Gaffney, Weatherspoon, Giancarlo Rosado, Brennan, Lorient, like, man, those guys, they would be superstars at a lot of different programs in the country. And it seems like, I mean, I don't think Greenlee gets enough credit for how he's played up to this point in the season. And Gaffney is showing what he can do. And Nick Boyd makes the layup against Memphis last year to beat them in the NCAA tournament. Like, that's the thing with FAU that's so impressive is, those three guys are all league caliber players. But that next group of guys, man, those guys could be averaging 30 minutes a game at the majority of schools across the country, and they all buy into their roles. And that is extremely impressive about this team.
Man, look, I'm gonna be honest. I get shit basically from Memphis fans because I've been talking really highly of FAU since the season started. Every time I tweet about FAU, like they tell me like, go cover FAU, move to Florida if you love them so much. I've had great respect for them. And man, when you get down the way they got down against Arizona was shooting them out the gym. And it says a lot about them and their experience and their toughness. They were able to claw back in that game and obviously win it. Even if they would not have won it, they were back in it. I thought said a lot. I'll say this, fellas. As far as this season goes, like I think either of these teams could win the whole thing. I really believe that. I don't think there's a super dominant team. We know what Purdue's sort of demons when they get to March. I think it is not out of the realm of possibility that they're just complete, man. And now Memphis adds Tomlin, as RC mentioned, and he's going to get better than what he showed against Vandy. He's going to start to acclimate. I think this is Memphis's best team since John Calipari was on the sidelines, since 07-08, because they have everything licked. They have the All-American scorer. They have the point guard. They have the big man. They have, really good depth pieces in Malcolm Dandridge and Nick Jourdain. I think the same is true of FAU. If we looked up in 3 months and either one of these teams is there in the end, it would not be a shock to me at all. And as a matter of fact, fellas, this is where it comes in. I'm this thing in the vault. Okay. I'm going to do it. Memphis is going to be in Phoenix. All right. Memphis is going to be in the Final Four, and I'm putting it in Vaulted. Vaulted's an app that allows you to participate in daily cash prize pools without an entry fee. It's the place to store your own bold predictions forever. And by using the Vaulted Challenge feature, you can prove that you are smarter than your friends. So go download the Vaulted app and give it a try for free. Vaulted is spelled VLTED, and it is the app to challenge your friends, store your predictions, and join daily cash prize pools without any entry fee. Download Vaulted today. Do you have any? Do either of you have any issues with that opinion that obviously Memphis specifically, but that either one of these teams could win it all? That's a big statement, but I truly believe that.
I believe it too. I'm with you. And the thing about Penny, like, think about this: 6 years as head coach, he's won 20 games every single year. So he's also gotten better and grown. Like, you hear me say that, but he's a really good basketball coach. To win 20 games every single year as a head coach, that's not an easy thing to do at a place like Memphis where there's high expectations. I'm high on FAU. I'm high on Memphis. I would not be surprised if either one of those teams are in Phoenix at all.
I was impressed with Penny the coach, being able to watch them, because it's not only is it hard, like you said, to win 20 games, it's really hard to do it when you lose your whole damn roster and you got to go in the transfer portal and get an entirely new roster, like getting 10, 11 guys. Like, that's just not an easy thing to do. And then get them to come together with the schedule he put together. And prior to these guys going on Christmas break, they beat 3 straight ranked teams. And that's impressive, man. A&M, They got a road win at VCU. They beat Clemson, Virginia at home. I mean, this is a damn good team with a lot of pieces, a lot of versatile pieces.
Yep.
I think that's what separates them than everybody else. They're versatile as hell. They can go big. They can go small. There's not a lot of teams that can attack you the way Memphis can attack you. They're going to be a tough ass out.
Yeah, I mean, everybody wants to talk about the Big East and the Big 10, the Big 12, man. Stay woke on the AAC. That race is going to be the most exciting in the country. All right? You like that? We'll come back, talk about the most disappointing teams and the biggest surprises in college basketball on the other side. You're watching Field of 68 After Dark.
As you guys know by now, we've partnered with BetMGM Sportsbook for this college basketball season. We're going to be using BetMGM lines to make all of our picks and predictions throughout the college basketball season. And we are going to have special offers for you, the listeners and the viewers on the Field of 68 each and every week during the season. If you haven't signed up with BetMGM yet, use the bonus code FIELD1500 and you will get up to a $1,500 first bet offer on your first wager on BetMGM Sportsbook. Here's what you got to do. Download the BetMGM app. Sign up using the bonus code FIELD1500. Deposit at least $10 and place your first wager on any game. You will receive up to $1,500 in bonus bets if that bet loses. Just make sure you use the bonus code FIELD1500 when you sign up. And remember, BetMGM is now available under one wallet in select states. As a New Jersey resident, this is super convenient for me when I have to go cover games in New York or Philly. When crossing state borders, just log into your existing account instead of having to create new accounts in each state that you go to. And most importantly, I got to let you know, we do have some fun stuff coming up for this college basketball season. Bet insurance tokens, college hoops odds boosts, my personal favorite, parlay odds boosts. So download the BetMGM app today.
All right, we're back. Welcome back to Field of 68 After Dark. One of the last shows of the 2023 calendar year. We'll, of course, be back chronicling all for the 2023-2024 college basketball season. All right, fellas. So, look, we're wrapping it up, and it is early. I mean, we're getting out of conference play, or excuse me, out of non-conference play officially, and we're getting into conference play, which is where it starts to get real. But you know, now's the time where we sort of take some stock, right? Now's the time where we sort of survey the landscape, and we do, much to Matt's chagrin, we have to call out the disappointments, but we're going to call out the surprises too. So we're going to balance it out for you. So let's start it off with, you guys pick a superlative here, each one of you. We'll go with the biggest surprise. Who are your biggest surprises for college basketball so far this year? Matt, you're up.
I'm going to go with Oklahoma and the job that Porter Moser has done this year. His team's off to I think 11-1 start now. They won tonight, wins over Providence, USC, Arkansas, Iowa. Their only loss was to Carolina at the Jumpman Invitational. I don't know how Carolina would ever lose the Jumpman Invitational. I don't think the basketball gods would allow that. But 15-17 last year, to see the way that Porter has those guys playing this year at 11-1, that's a surprise for me, and it's super impressive. And we all know he was a good coach, and he for what he did at Loyola Chicago, it was only a matter of time before he got it rolling at Oklahoma, and that's a surprise for me to have that team at 11-1 and in prime position to win a championship as they move into conference play.
RC, who you got?
I like it. I got Colorado State. I thought they'd be good, but I didn't think they'd be this good. And I didn't know anybody around me that told me they were going to be this good. So you're talking about a team this team has beat Creighton. It's beat St. Mary's. It's beat Colorado. It's beaten Boston College. It's beaten some really good teams early this year. And they're fun to watch. They're a team that's playing similar to what I've always say FAU plays like, a team that's just connected, playing together. The ball moves. This team averages 20 assists a night. So credit to Nico Medved and those guys at Colorado State having a hell of a year. I didn't think they'd be this good, and they could beat anybody. Like they're damn good and they're fun to watch. They're not a team that you want to play. They're playing really well right now. So that's been my biggest surprise this year. I thought they'd be okay, but not this good.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, and then we move to the other side of the pendulum. I know you're not going to like this one, Matt, but it's on the block here. Got to do it. Got to do it, brother. Biggest disappointment.
John. So here's what I'm going to. My biggest disappointment. Disappointment, and I know you're not going to like this. My biggest
I'm not.
disappointment is that this is the last year of the Pac-12. That's my biggest disappointment. I can't go one team. I'm not going to say Michigan State.
Well done.
I'm not going to do that.
Well done.
This is the last season of that league where you have rivalries and it means something, and Arizona and UCLA and battling against each other. And it's late night college hoops. It gives us something to watch when we're up late at night as coaches, when we're worried about how we're going to guard a pick and roll the next day or whatever we got to do. And the only thing we turn on is on the East Coast is Pac-12 college hoops, and we don't have it anymore. That's my biggest disappointment, that this is the last year of that. We don't get it anymore. We don't get those rivalries, and that's disappointing. So I'm not going to single out a single team. I'm not going to single out Louisville because I know that's what you want me to do. I'm not going to call out Michigan State and Tom Izzo because they're going to be in the NCAA tournament. So I'm not going to do that. I'm going to talk about my biggest disappointment is the Pac-12 is no longer, and I mean it, and I'm sticking with it.
Well, we might be able to add a league to this really soon in the ACC. I mean, it may not. I mean, I don't know if RC if you're up on your ACC news, bro, but it's getting a little. The ice is getting thin in the ACC.
What are you talking about? I don't.
Florida State wants out. Clemson wants out. Everybody wants out, man. That thing's about to crumble.
Listen, that's a whole. It's gonna crumble for everybody because in a couple of years, if not next year, football just gonna go off and do their own thing, and just stop all this foolishness and let the rest of the collegiate athletic sports just come together and just play together and just let football go do its own thing. I think everybody's talking about it. We're not talking about football now, but that's a whole nother thing. I'll say this: my disappointment so far, like I said, it's still early in the year. I think Michigan State's low-hanging fruit. I think it's easy to say those guys early. I'm not quite as convinced that they'll make it, but I need to see more from them in the Big Ten and they get in the conference play to be convinced that they're going to make it. I just think the weight of the expectations are always tough. But we talked about a team to start tonight. I think that's been disappointing, and I think I think USC's been disappointing early this year. Excluding Bronny James, I thought this team would be a lot better than it's been so far. So disappointed in the start. Do I think they'll be better? They can figure some things out with him coming back and his minute restriction. And as Bronny gets better, I think they get better. But I'm still expecting more with the talent that team possessed early in the year. And I'd also throw Goodman's Final Four prediction in there. I thought St. Mary struggled early, to the season. And was a little bit of a disappointment early on. So, I'm disappointed there's some teams that have some work to do. Yeah. That's the biggest disappointment. But Jeff could be on every disappointment. You can have his picture frame. He could be the poster child for disappointment. So
John L. Davis said he's a good guy. John L. Davis said he's a good guy.
Hey, he may be that.
He took him and bought him dinner.
Damn.
Come on, Nelly. Nelly's like, oh, Goodman, you're a good guy, right?
Yeah.
What I'm disappointed in Goodman about when he did that interview was the shirt that he had on, man. The outfit that he had on. He had a nerve to wear T-shirt and shorts around these dudes. They all cut up and ripped in shape. Goodman comes out there with this flimsy ass T-shirt on, man.
Like you can't go
walking around looking for money.
You can't go rent a house down in Charleston for however long he does and not own a polo that you can put on and walk around in South Florida. You got to put a collar was all ripped. Collar was like down here.
Hey, look, and at least get some sun, man. Get tan before you go out and walk around to those guys on the beach. He's walking around, no tan, like he's been in Boston all year. Like, come on, Jeff, do better.
Do better. Did he have Tevas on? Did he have Tevas on? That's a Massachusetts thing. Did he have some Tevas on? I don't remember.
I'm sure he did.
Who knows?
I will say though, for my for my pale brethren, it's not easy for all of us. Some of us, like when I try to get the sun, I just turn red. I don't get tan. I turn red. It's just I'm cursed, man. I'm cursed.
Hey, John, we gotta ask you, who's been your disappointment?
Yeah, come on, man.
Team? Who would you add?
It's been Creighton. It's been Creighton. And the reason why I actually got a chance to look at them up close in Vegas against UNLV. Now UNLV got boomed back that day because of the transfer thing, so that definitely gave them a boost. But I expected a Creighton to take a real step this year, coming off that Elite Eight last year, and they got out tough by San Diego State in that game. And the same things keep happening. You know, when they get up against these Mountain West type of teams that are kind of constructed one way, whether it's Colorado State, whether it's San Diego State, whether it was UNLV, you know, they're going to really struggle. Villanova the other night, right? Those teams that are sort of hallmarked by toughness and just punching you in the mouth. Like, when is Creighton going to punch back when they get in those kinds of games? And I hear the same argument and I get it. And it's true that they can shoot anybody out of the gym. But when you get in the tournament, man, it's not about that. It's about punching back. And to me, Creighton has not shown the ability to do that over 2 years. And look, they made the Elite Eight, so it's hard to criticize them too much. But it's just like, okay, you're barely hanging on to the top 25 right now, and you haven't improved in this very specific area. You know, can you do that on the fly? We'll see if they make some changes, but Creighton would be the answer for me. But that's a high bar, right? It's like, you know, you're a top 10 team. You're not the top 10 anymore. Therefore, you're a disappointment.
You holding them to their standard. You holding them to their standard. That's all. I mean, they're a damn good team. You're holding them to a standard.
Right, before we get out of here, toast of the night, gentlemen. And then, of course, if you have in the chat, we're going to head over to Stadium, and we're going to be answering those over at last call. But, Matt, start with you. Light night in college basketball, but if there is anybody locked in, okay, to what's going on around the country, I know it's you. Who are we toasting tonight?
You know what I want to toast? I want to toast what we were talking about. I want to toast the AAC. I want to toast the matchup between Memphis and FAU, because me and you are going to be dialed into that matchup.
That's right.
It's going to be fun to watch. I know it's not until February, but to see how the whole conference shapes out, and to RC's point, you know, who doesn't lose a bad game, or who doesn't lose that's who's going to play for the championship. I mean, we could toast Oregon. They had a good win. I was going to toast my man John Pelfrey from Tennessee Tech, but they dropped one tonight to Arkansas Little Rock. So light night in college hoops. So I'm gonna toast the AAC, and we're looking forward to that matchup between FAU and Memphis.
RC, what you got?
It's a light night. It's a light night in college basketball. But I'm going to toast Fanta, John Fanta, because your Browns, who's been sorry your entire freaking life. Your entire life, your Cleveland Browns have sucked, and they clinched the playoffs today, brother. So I'm gonna toast to you, because you're the only real Cleveland Brown fan that I know. So cheers!
Come on,
Fanta,
Fanta.
to your Cleveland Browns. Congratulations!
Come on, pound for sure. For sure. I concur. I'm going to just give it to Oklahoma. They continue to, win games, get the job done, ranked in the top 12. They're undefeated at home. Shout out to the Sooners getting the job done. All right, we're going to head over to Stadium for last call, answer all your questions. Thanks for being with us tonight. For Matt McCall, for Randolph Childress, I'm John Martin.